Hi everyone, this is Leonard Ulrich with a special short update which I'd like to call Silver Breakout and Breakdown question mark. There's been a lot of news that has been happening in the financial front, especially in the United States this past week, and it has been confirmed that the price of silver and gold was rigged and has been rigged for years, principally by Deutsche Bank. You are looking at the letter from one of the legal firms involved in this case against Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank is going to name, or should I say, squeal, on other big banks that are involved in this, what used to be called a conspiracy theory. So now it is fact, it is legal fact that Deutsche Bank, as well as other banks, have been caught rigging the price of gold and silver, and already several multi-billion-dollar lawsuits are hitting the big banks in this regard. Now, don't think for a minute that this is going to end the manipulation of the price of gold and silver. No, 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 no. This is just the price of doing business by the big banks. And the big banks are looking at gold and silver like kryptonite. They want the whole world sucked into their fiat monetary system. So they have no problem rigging the price of gold and silver and even paying out settlements in this regard because, like I said, it's just the cost of doing business. Now, what is happening to the price of silver? Well, I think we've hit the bottom. I truly do. It's been a long grind for silver investors. I've seen the price of silver go from almost 50 to below 15. And just getting into more recent territory now, as you can see, I think the bottom is in. This does not mean that the big Western banks will stop their attack on gold and silver, but there is something happening in the world that is causing me to have more hope now than in the past 5 years that the price of gold and silver will continue to rise. And that hope is the Shanghai Gold Exchange. You see, the people in China aren't stupid. They know that the price of gold and silver is constantly being rigged by the big Western banks. So the Shanghai Gold Exchange is doing something unique in that they are offering gold and silver in the real world. They're not offering paper gold or electronic silver. There are 300 claims per every ounce of gold, physical, real gold, in the Western bank vaults. Now, this is not going to go over very well, and the powers that be in China know this, so this week, the Shanghai Gold Exchange goes live, and of course, the SGE is buying and selling real gold, real silver, real platinum, real palladium, and it'll be very interesting to see what effect this has on the price of gold and silver. Meanwhile, in the West, more developments continue that aren't exactly confidence inspiring. For example, it is against protocol to have the president and vice president and the Federal Reserve chairman, Janet Yellen, meeting all at the same time in New York. Normally, you do not have the president and the vice president meeting in the same room with anybody. It's just against security protocol. But there's been a whole bunch of meetings lately between the Fed chair and the president and vice president, and that is because the Federal Reserve is no longer confident that the big Western banks, big American banks in particular, can withstand a breakdown. For example, the Federal Reserve issued a 19-page letter right here, to Jamie Dimon. Oh, I don't want to go into any pejorative terms about Mr. Dimon. And basically, the bottom line is this. The federal regulators didn't say JP Morgan could pose a threat to its shareholders or Wall Street or the markets. It said the potential threat was to, quote, the financial stability of the United States. Well, no kidding. The big banks, each of them, not in combination, but each of them has more derivatives or bets on its books than the entire gross domestic product of a year for the United States. So the big banks basically have no clue about how to be financially solvent. And they have no clue as to how they can unwind their trades. Meanwhile, in the Baltic Sea, you have Russian jets buzzing American naval vessels. The U.S. Marines are broke. They have no money to fund the constant training or practicing of their pilots. As a result, you get this on behalf of the Russian forces. I mean, Russia knows that America can't retaliate. Russia knows that America has been spending money like crazy maintaining an empire. And that is not because the American people wanted an empire. That is because the American big banks, which own the governments of the United States, Republican and Democrat, want to project an empire. Now I'm going to show you a picture from my upcoming film, and this should really be burned into your head. Okay, this is how America maintains its empire. Are you getting the picture? The American big banks, headed by the Federal Reserve, just print up the money, and that money is shoved down the throats of the nations of the world by the big guns of the American military. So there is a collusion of the military-industrial financial complex to maintain the effect of wealth on behalf of paper and electronic digits, which have no real value. So you have a choice. You have a choice to pull your money out now while you can still get it and convert it into real money, as in gold and silver, or maintain the illusion that everything is just fine in spite of the Shanghai Gold Exchange, in spite of the fact that the big banks are caught rigging the price of gold and silver, in spite of the fact that the president and vice president and the Federal Reserve chair have been meeting like crazy over the past 2 weeks, in spite of the fact that the Federal Reserve has sent an open letter to JP Morgan chastising them on their lack of a plan to engage in bankruptcy proceedings should the banks fail. No, you'd much rather maintain the illusion of the wealth of U.S. currency backed up by big guns, even though the rest of the world isn't buying it. So what do? Well, watch the price of gold and silver like crazy over the next 1 or 2 weeks. And if you have the cash, have the resources to convert some of that into gold and silver, well then check out my Gold and Silver 101 video. This is real money. This is the illusion of money. Oh, and by the way, the bail-ins are coming. If you think that you shouldn't get your money out, everything is still fine in spite of all the evidence that I've given you about foreign physical exchanges, about Federal Reserve meetings, about Federal Reserve letters. Okay, if you still want to maintain the illusion that everything is just fine, keep in mind that in Europe, the bail-ins have continued beyond Cyprus. Okay, they're starting in Austria, where European banks are failing and bank depositors are losing part of their funds, part of their money. The big banks are simply just reaching into account holders' accounts and taking what they need. But I think the most stubborn people I know will still not understand what is going on until they see from the Federal Reserve Vice Chairman, Stanley Fischer, what the plan is. And here is the plan.
The United States is preparing a proposal to require systemically important banks to issue bail-inable long-term debt that will enable insolvent banks to recapitalize themselves.
Okay, so there you've heard it. The bail-in proceedings are already in place. It's just a matter of time before the entire financial system centered in America begins to crumble. Now, I got a question for you. Did you hear of what would happen in the 2008 financial crisis in advance? Because you were kept in the dark back then, you're probably being kept in the dark right now. Gold and silver is good, cash is good, emergency supplies are good, food is good. Keeping your money in the big banks is not a plan. That's it. Back to the grindstone. I hope you will act on this information. I hope you realize that it's not driven by fear, but rather by fact. And the rest is up to you.